What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes, and for this video you find me sitting in the 2023 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 4xe. This is an electrified Jeep. It's a plug-in hybrid EV, so you can drive it like a hybrid, like an EV, albeit for a very short range, or just like a normal Wrangler. This 4xe model is painted in the silver Zenith exterior paint with a black and dark saddle interior, with all of the other upgrades like this really neat Sky One Touch power top, and with delivery, this spec can be yours for $69,780. And in this video, I want to give you my likes and dislikes about this electrified Jeep, and also give you my ratings on the exterior, interior, technology, power, driving experience, and overall rating of this vehicle, so that you have a better idea before you buy. Now let's get started with the exterior first. This is the same looking JL Jeep Wrangler. So from a Jeep standard, I think it is the best looking and most functional Jeep design out of all of the other generations. And for the 4xe version, there are distinguishing features like the blue tow hooks, the blue decals. This one is a Rubicon model, so there's a blue highlight around the decal. And if you have a Willys trim, it'll have a blue highlight there as well. And of course, you can't forget about the charging port. This has the J1772 plug, so you should really reference a better route planner or your charging apps to find where you could charge this vehicle up. Because some of the faster chargers out there only come with the CCS style plug, and this one won't work with it. This tester also comes equipped with the Sky One Touch power top. It's a $4,145 upgrade, and it's the most expensive top option that you could find for the Wrangler. It looks like a hard top from the outside, but it's way more convenient. No need to store your roof panels elsewhere. It folds easily, just like a ragtop convertible. You can still have a roof rack if you want, but you'd have to mount it on the gutter or the drip rail. If you have a top that you prefer, please let us know in the comments down below. As for the headlights, I've been driving in the winter time, so I'm spending more time driving in the dark. And I've noticed that the LED headlights on this model are extremely bright. The combo of the headlights, the fog lights, and the daytime running light configuration, this Wrangler puts out a ton of light. So from a style rating, I'm giving this an 8 out of 10 because this is the same traditional JL Jeep Wrangler, which I think looks really good. And the 4xe upgrades are unique, but they're not loud enough to detract from the usual Wrangler style. Let's talk about the interior next, and lo and behold, this looks like other JL Wranglers. So it still has the same switchgear, the same buttons, and the same knobs, and they all feel pretty high quality. The leather seats look and feel great, and the gear lever, the handbrake, and also the lever for the transfer case all feel very solid and high quality. You will find some unique 4xe features like the driving mode buttons. The hybrid driving mode is the default mode that this car goes into. Basically, this is going to drive just like a hybrid. It's going to tap into the battery when it needs to. In the electric driving mode, it's going to try and use up the battery first before it taps into the engine. Of course, there are some exceptions to that. For example, if there's a higher torque demand, then it's going to kick on the engine so that it could help you get going. And additionally, if it recognizes that you've been using electric mode for a long time and it needs to cycle through the gas and the oil, it's going to force the car to turn on the engine so it could use up all those fluids. And then lastly, there's the e-save mode, and that's going to try and save as much battery power as possible and just rely on the engine. And I like all those driving mode buttons because they're simple to understand and they're within easy reach. And if you look in the center console, there's the max regen button. This is basically going to try and harvest as much energy as possible when you're slowing down the car. It's not quite like one pedal driving because it doesn't stop the car as aggressively as those other EVs, but this is a good button to use if you're just trying to prolong that battery life during your drive. Now, if you look at the second row, the battery pack resides underneath the cushions. Unlike other EVs, usually the battery is located way down below by the floorboards. In this case, because the Wrangler needs to maintain that awesome ground clearance, they had to pack the batteries right below the second row seats, which means that this is going to eat up about 5 cubic feet of interior space. So there's going to be less storage compared to a comparable non-4xe Wrangler. Other features you'll find that's unique to the 4xe is this status bar up here. So when you're charging, there's going to be a couple of LEDs that light up to tell you from the outside whether you're fully charged or not. And then lastly, with the 4xe, you also get a nice storage bag for your charger. This one plugs in your standard 110 volt outlet, and that's the way I've been charging the car up overnight because I don't have a 240 volt system or a level 2 charger at my house. And using a standard outlet, it's going to take about 12 to 16 hours to fully charge the car from 0 to the full electric range of 21 to 22 miles. Other than those unique 4xe features, this is the same old JL Wrangler. And I really like the interior design compared to the older generations because this is much more functional and higher quality. I also like all of the little Easter eggs that they've peppered throughout the car. So I'm giving this interior an 8 out of 10 because the JL Wrangler's interior is already pretty good. And the unique 4xe additions don't really detract from it, aside from the battery pack eating up the extra cargo space. Let's talk about the technology next, and the centerpiece of this JL Wrangler is this 8.4-inch Uconnect 4C unit. The more Stellantis vehicles I test, like Dodge, Jeeps, and Rams, the more I'm impressed with this system. There are so many features, specialized off-road pages, customizable shortcuts, and it's all laid out in a clean and simple presentation. This unit comes with navigation that you could pinch the zoom, and there's also controls for your heated seats and the heated steering wheel as well. And if you want to use physical buttons, you can also reach those down here. And you can also access the front and rear view cameras with ease. My only negative about this system is that it doesn't come with wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. Those are only available in the Uconnect 5 system. Fortunately, there's a bunch of those wireless Apple CarPlay dongles that you could buy aftermarket to get you that capability. Now looking ahead, there's a 7-inch full color display between the physical gauges. This is a really good display, and you could toggle between many different metrics and other info. And as for the sound system, this Wrangler comes with the Alpine Premium audio system. I'm no audiophile, but I really like the quality of the sound. Generally, there's a lot of noise coming from the tires, and the fact that this Wrangler is shaped like a brick, so it's not very aerodynamic. And also, this soft top brings in a lot of noise from the road and the wind. Now, you could drown all of that out by cranking up on this volume dial. So I'll give the Wrangler 4xe a tech rating of 7 out of 10. I think you'll be pretty happy with the amount of tech in here. But compared to the tech that's found in the new Ford Bronco with the Sync 4 system, which has wireless Apple CarPlay and also looks much more modern, this one doesn't impress as much. Now let's talk about the power, because the 4xe is rated at 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers sound really impressive, as the torque figures is the same as the V8 Rubicon 392. The 4xe certainly feels like a slightly faster Wrangler, as it can do 0 to 60 in the 6-ish second range. But when you're hammering on the throttle, that's when you find out how complicated this vehicle is from a powertrain perspective. The software in this car has to juggle between using the 2 electric motors and the 2-liter turbo internal combustion engine. And when you're driving this car hard, that transition isn't very smooth. But when you're driving like a normal person under normal day-to-day usage, that transition is actually not too bad and not very noticeable at all. Now, when you're forcing this Wrangler to operate in electric mode only, you're going to be capped to 134 horsepower. So when you exceed that power demand, that's when the internal combustion engine is going to kick in. As for efficiency, this 4xe Wrangler gets 49 MPGe, or miles per gallon equivalent. MPGe is a convoluted way of measuring miles per gallon equivalency. The Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, calculated that 1 gallon of gas equals about 33.7 kilowatt hours of electricity. So if a car takes 33.7 kilowatt hours to drive 100 miles, then that car is going to get a rating of 100 MPGe. This car gets a rating of 68 kilowatt hours to drive 100 miles. So doing a little bit of conversion, that turns out to be 49 miles per gallon equivalent. You get that efficiency when you're operating in electric and gas mode. But once the electricity dedicated for EV mode runs out at about 22 miles, then this is going to operate solely as a hybrid, and not a very effective one at that, because this will get you 20 miles per gallon across the board. And in case you're curious, no, you can't charge this car up in a meaningful way to get the electric miles back up to 22 just by driving around with the internal combustion engine. So to get the battery back up to full charge, you have to plug in. And with a level 2 charger, it's going to take about 2.5 hours to charge this to full range. The way I've been charging is just plugging directly to a 110 outlet, and that's going to take about 12 to 16 hours, which really isn't too bad because you could just plug in when you get home from work and then just leave it charging overnight, and it'll be back up to full in the morning. So from an efficiency perspective, whether the 4xe makes sense or not is really a math and budgeting problem. If your workplace is really far and you have no good way of charging at work, then it doesn't really make much sense to have the 4xe. If your commute to work is very short, or if you could charge at work, then it makes sense to have the 4xe because you could operate more in the most efficient mode. But from a power perspective, I have to give this a rating of 6 out of 10 because the 4xe hybrid powertrain doesn't add much to the capability of the Wrangler. Yes, it's the most powerful Wrangler right outside of the 392, but the hybrid powertrain also adds a lot of weight to carry around. And while this is the most efficient Wrangler, that's only true the more often you charge it up. And considering that the 4xe costs about $12,000 to $13,000 more compared to a comparable non-4xe Wrangler, you're going to have to be doing a lot of electric-only driving to make it worth your while. Next, let's talk about the ride and handling and the driving experience of this 4xe Wrangler. The best part of it is, just like the exterior and interior, all of the plug-in hybrid EV hardware doesn't detract from that Wrangler driving experience. If anything, it just adds to it. This Rubicon 4xe still has the front and rear locking diffs. It has a disconnecting sway bar so you can get more articulation out of the front axle. And it still has a 2-speed transfer case so you can do some serious off-roading. So from a ride and handling perspective, this still rides just like other Wranglers. You either like it or you don't. Compared to crossovers, this is not going to ride and handle as nice. This is a body-on-frame vehicle that has a live front and rear axle. The steering feel is vague and it handles like an old-school pickup truck. But if you drive the Wrangler as it was intended, off-roading, then this is one of the best off-road vehicles out there. It has tremendous approach and departure angles. There's a lot of ground clearance at 10.8 inches, and the ability to do all of that with the doors off and the top completely open makes this a really unique vehicle. So I'm giving the driving experience an 8 out of 10 because the plug-in hybrid EV technology doesn't really detract from the Wrangler character. So in summary, this Wrangler 4xe is a Wrangler through and through. It's a great off-roading vehicle that has great looks, nice looking interior, and a decent amount of technology inside. The addition of the plug-in hybrid technology is a nice addition, but whether it's an economical solution to your driving needs really depends on how often you could keep it charged up. Therefore, I'm giving this 4xe Wrangler Rubicon an overall rating of 7 out of 10. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Does a plug-in hybrid Wrangler make sense for your living situation? Please let me know in the comments below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching all the way till the end. If you've learned something from this video, please consider hitting that like, subscribe, and that notification bell so that you can be notified anytime we make a new video. Let's wrap it up right there. My name's Hanson. This has been the 2023 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 4xe, and I'll see you in the next one.